Welcome to the Social Millennial Podcast. We out here, gang. It's been a wild week in recovery from COVID. Still, little by little, baby steps. We gonna make it. New York tough, New York strong. We in this together. I had a great week. I'm alive. I'm on this earth. I'm breathing. Got more chances to make it do what it do. You feel me? So, as my mentor says, we can't complain. You know, we might be going through, but I can't complain. I know some may not have a roof over their head. I know some may not have food in their fridge to eat. Some may not have a job. But we still here. We still got a chance to turn that around. We still got a chance to take control of what's going on in our lives and, wring out some lemonade out of these lemons. I know we get lemon juice from lemons, but you feel me. So some news. A lot's been going on, a lot politically. Once again, this is not necessarily a political podcast. There will be a point in time where I will get heavily political, but that time is not now. Keep y'all heads above water because, a lot of this political stuff is getting out of hand. Every single side, from every single angle, it's getting wild. Just lies being thrown left, right, up, down, center, left to center. It don't matter. Everybody's clawing or seemingly clawing to try to get as many votes as they possibly can, regardless of how disingenuous they are, regardless of how they're going to pander, regardless of how hard body or hard in the paint they're going to go. No matter how contradictory it is, they will say what they need to say to hopefully get people to vote for them. And it's kind of trash. It's kind of trash. I'm mincing words. It's all the way trash. It's booty. That things are the way they are and they flow and function the way that they function. Our political system, most of the world's political systems are like that. Really don't like it. I'm not a huge fan. But anyway, let's get to some news. Some news. Some world star news. As reported by Business Insider, passengers brawled on an American Airlines flight from Las Vegas to Charlotte after supposedly one refused to wear a mask. COVID is getting to people. It's getting rough. We have a few people who are not getting in touch with their star player and who are out here acting a fool. There is a video of it that is circulating. I believe somebody took this video and shared it on Twitter. They are legit throwing hands. They're not squaring up, but, grabbing, throwing as much as you can possibly beat somebody up inside of an airplane before it takes off. Now, the article goes on to state it was probably because of a dispute over seating and not so much about them not wearing masks, but the both of them were not wearing masks. It would just be really weird that, well, not necessarily. I'll say people are people. We are not always smart as human beings. We are not always intelligent as human beings. We are not always wise as human beings. Neither of them are wearing masks. If this was a dispute about wearing a mask and they got into fisticuffs, it adds to the hilarity of the situation and quite possibly the ignorance of the situation. It seems like the person filming is alluding to them fighting over a seat, but it's just strange to me that people would resort to fisticuffs over something as trivial as a seat. But then I come from NYC, and you could get $150 for looking at somebody the wrong way. You feel me? You could get pressed from walking a certain way down a street. You can get pressed by passing a couple of dudes walking in the street. So I'm saying what I'm saying, but I know where I came from and I get it. It could happen. It's not outside of the realm of possibility that fisticuffs would be resorted to on the plane over someone who doesn't want to get out of somebody else's seat, over basically kindergarten problem, first grade issues. So yeah, that thing happened. I'm not super happy about it. It is world star worthy. It is very much so. What the heck are these people doing? Why? You could laugh at it. There's some humor that could be had in the video, but I just don't like that it's our people that are getting into these kind of precarious situations and trying to fight each other for something so trivial when so many people have died from COVID or so many people have died from COVID or died of conditions that COVID worsened or escalated. That so much is going on in this world. So many people who are going hungry. So many people who are being abused. So many people who are being trafficked against their will, that someone would be okay with, getting up and throwing hands because you're sitting in my seat on the airplane that I paid for, when I could just call captain, flight attendants, security. They could just make it do what it do. You look at my ticket, look at their ticket. It's the wrong place. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. So it's very interesting. I would definitely love to know more about the backstory of said brawl. But right now, all we know is that it might have been about not wearing a mask, or it might have been about someone in the wrong seat. So there that is. Now, am I going to do the update on this other story? No. More just wildness, or interesting wildness. I guess we're going to dip into a little bit of politics. According to, or as reported by the New York Post this week, Antifa rioters stormed through Seattle in night of mayhem while police do nothing. Roving gangs of Antifa rioters spent Friday evening rampaging through the streets of Seattle with police often nowhere to be found. Video and eyewitness accounts show. Very interesting. No police found, breaking windows. I most certainly do not condone this. I understand people wanting to have their voices heard and feeling like they maybe need to go to extreme measures to have their voices heard. I really don't like that Antifa and other fringe groups have decided to piggyback off of the protests going on that are looking to bring about actual legislative changes in state government and federal government. I really don't like it. I'm super perturbed by it. I understand the slogans and so on and the mission statements of Antifa and so on, and I'm not really going to dive into the merits of that and the merits of the existence of Antifa for better or for worse. But I will go into these fringe groups going too far. I will get into, or I will comment, or my statement regarding this is that it's very interesting that you will get these. It's a very interesting optic where people come together of different creeds in unity to not just bring justice for certain deaths and not just bring justice or bring accountability to those who are sworn to serve and protect us, but that they brought people together for and when I say people, no, not and when I say people, they brought the world together, because there are movements that stand in solidarity across the world with what's happening right now in the United States regarding policing. That there are movements that are bringing people together peacefully to enact real change and right now, though, those movements are predominantly run and predominantly occupied by people of color. And I see it as an interesting optic that people of color come together to try to bring about change legislatively. And how do I say this? People of non-color, for lack of a better term. It's an interesting optic that the movements predominantly populated by white people would seize this opportunity of unity and turn it into an attack on the government, attack on the establishment. It's very interesting. It's an interesting optic, especially when an organization like Antifa is supposed to be anti-fascist. It's very interesting. It seems borderline unself-aware, not self-aware. You know? And very much so self-seeking. Very much so putting on the mantle of political correctness just to create a pathway, a more palatable, a more slippery, a more viscous pathway to what the real goal is. And that's just attacking the government for XYZ amount of reasons. It's very interesting. When an organization that's supposed to be anti-fascist essentially uses the fascist playbook to try to fight against the government, it's interesting. That's all I have to say about that. It's interesting. Now, that the police didn't pull up and a lot of people were concerned is very interesting too, because they were very much so talking about, I believe in Portland, talking about defunding the police, pulling funding from the police and putting the funding somewhere else. So when the police don't pull up, it should not be surprising if the local government, state government is down for defunding the police when riots happen and rioters run rampant trying to burn down federal buildings and burn down police precincts. Don't be surprised when the police don't pull up. I can understand that police departments would not feel like they are like they are protected or like they are being treated fairly, in that they are trying to do their job and they just end up bailing. I get it. And when I say protected, I don't mean that they should not be held accountable for the things that they do. When I say protected, I mean that they're able to get all of the funding that they need to be able to function the way that they need to function. Because police departments are, especially in large city centers, are by and large outnumbered. San Francisco Police Department is outnumbered. Definitely New York City Police Department is outnumbered. And we're talking about defunding them. Or I should say there were talks to de Blasio's figuring something out with that. So it's very interesting that there were people in Seattle. I don't remember. I don't know if these riots took place in Portland specifically, that were troubled. Where are the police? They're breaking down, breaking people's windows of their cars and setting stuff on fire. And these are people that they don't even know. Where's the help? Where's the protect and serve? We ain't nowhere to be found because the local government diminished our numbers, diminished our ability to do what we need to do. So I find that to be very interesting. Very, very interesting. Very interesting developments too. because there are more peaceful protests going on, and you don't really hear a whole lot about it nowadays. You know how the news cycle goes. If it's not the thing that's the it thing right now, we're not going to talk about it. So we were all about, protest, Breonna Taylor, protest, mass. Now all of a sudden the peaceful protests are not getting covered like that. It's interesting. A lot of interesting things. When reading this article, another thing interested me. Regarding what they were chanting. Let me see if I can find it. This is I think I said it as reported by the New York Post. Shared by journalists. Let me see. Where is this? There were some quotes here. Look at all this. Right. Eating outdoors. Right. Other video from the scene shows a cavalcade of 20 police vehicles approaching. Interesting. But yeah, what is this? Oh, they were demanding that the mayor commits to the distribution of $100 million through the participatory budget process. Kings County Equity. Yeah, quote, "We are the experts on what will keep us safe and what will make us whole. We live this, we breathe this, and unfortunately we have died because of this." End quote. And that $100 million represents 25% of the Seattle Police Department's yearly budget, which is interesting. The governor, the mayor has been committed to slashing that budget up to this point. Quote, he says, "Defunding the Seattle Police Department by 50% remains our goal. We expect the city council and the mayor to meet that goal." Wow. Okay. Yeah, so it's super interesting because I don't believe that money is going to solve the problems that we're dealing with now. I see a lot of the issues going on having to be, in part, a cultural issue from within our culture and a legislative issue. The accountability isn't there legally. New York took some steps there, but generally speaking, state by state, it's just not there legally. The transparency required to be able to feel safe in your own community and or feel protected and or feel like there are operatives in your community sent by the state government in order to help. It's by and large non-existent, that feeling, the gist with police. And I think I firmly believe it's a legislative thing. There are certain ways that the police departments have to change the model. At the federal level, there has to be some laws that have to be changed and some laws that have to be newly enacted. And then those repairs have to happen from within. Communities of color have to take an honest look at what their culture is producing, what the fruits of the culture are, and get a better understanding. In doing so, get a better understanding as to how to yield better fruit, how various communities of color can yield greater fruit, riper fruit, brighter fruit. But that happens from within. That doesn't happen from without. No amount of money is going to make that work, in my opinion, because it's a mindset. You may have money to open up certain buildings or to police your own neighborhoods, but when your kids are growing up and our generations are growing up, and so many of us are not making it do what it do financially, not making it do what it do mentally, not being prepared properly emotionally to be adults, to be grown. It's not going to matter how many schools you build. It's not going to matter how many centers that you build for community outreach. The cycle is going to continue if you don't break it, if you don't influence it. So communities of color are going to need to step up in a huge way. It can't be the government do this, do that, and it's going to magically go away. That's just not what is going to happen. That is not realistic. But yeah, moving on, definitely moving on to our next story. We had in media news and developing, Nick Cannon is seems like he's getting in Viacom WB's good graces. Little by little. I'm really not a huge fan of the flip-flop, He said what he said, did what he did on his podcast, didn't necessarily apologize for it right off the bat, decided to him or his team, because these guys generally have teams that are going to PR teams that are going to put out statements. But those initial statements were really combative. How could they do this and so on, demanding Wild 'N Out, demanding all of that. And then it switched to, I'm sorry, my Jewish brothers and sisters and so on. I need to learn more. I don't really sort of like the flip flop. It could have been a knee jerk reaction. It seems like they may not have had legal recourse because of his contract to be able to sue sue Viacom for Wild 'N Out. So that's interesting. But he's been out. He had an esteemed rabbi on his podcast. He went and did some things with rabbis and so on, took some trips, had some interviews and so on. And they're saying that he understands not the implications. He understands the damage of his words regarding the Jewish community. And I believe, as reported by Variety, Chris McCarthy, president of entertainment and youth brands at Viacom CBS, praised work that Cannon claims to have done to make amends for his comments and to gain a better understanding of why they were offensive. McCarthy described himself as hopeful that the company and Cannon would find a way to rebuild their partnership. So it's just very interesting. Super unfortunate, but also very interesting. It may end up evolving into sort of a James Gunn kind of thing. For those who are not familiar, James Gunn is the director, and I believe he's a producer, has a producing credit and a writing credit on the Guardians of the Galaxy films for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. James Gunn, right? He has a brother. I'm searching my brain, racking my brain to make sure that I'm not confusing the names here. Let me see. It's James Gunn. Yeah, it's James Gunn. Okay, Marcus. Okay. So yeah. It could evolve into a James Gunn thing where certain tweets were dug up of James Gunn's from years and years, from like 10 years ago, and he said some wild stuff trying to be a super edgelord, and Disney, Marvel booted him, gave him the boot from working on Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was supposed to have already been made from before, like been in production from like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. But that didn't happen because Gunn was booted off. Some people came to his aid and was like, yo, this dude is a stand-up guy. What are you talking about? He said these things like 10 years ago, trying to be an edgelord, trying to be edgy and whatever and get clicks. He's not the same person. And even, Gunn was like, I said that 10 years ago. I was in a completely different mindset of trying to get attention, trying to make people laugh than I am now, And so they booted him off. They were not going to work with him anymore. And then time passes. James Gunn gets, I don't know if it was almost immediately, but James Gunn gets offered to do the Suicide Squad sequel for Warner Brothers and DC. He takes that. He's working on that. That's going to come out at some point. I don't know when, COVID jacking everything up. But he gets that, works on that. And then Disney comes back around and goes, hey, maybe we overreacted. Come back again. So I think my theory is that this is what this is going to evolve into. Viacom, Nick Cannon says some wild stuff, wild offensive Hebrew Israelite stuff on his podcast. They have to address it because Jewish community. And he doesn't go and issue an apology, so they have to publicly disavow Nick Cannon. They have to publicly distance. So they publicly distance for a certain amount of time, the way that MCU and Disney did. But then they publicly do it with the intention of coming back and rejoining up again. I think that's what the deal is. They haven't said that they're rejoining partnership or anything like that officially at all. But that there's talks of, we hope that Nick, we could do our thing in the future. It leads me to believe they're going to give a few months or a year or something of cool down time for this scandal, and then they're going to bring Nick Cannon back. That's my theory. We'll see what happens in a year's time. Definitely hold me to it. In other entertainment news, the Backstreet Boys, yes, the Backstreet Boys, if you were a fan of BSB like I was, and I still am, they have their own radio show. I believe, let me see, where does it do its thing? They have their own radio show. Where is this? There we go. As reported by Cosmopolitan magazine, it's called All I Have to Give Radio, of course, named after one of their super popular songs. It's just sort of a nostalgia trip. They're sitting down, podcast style, just talking about things. Talking about the years past and nostalgia and revisiting certain experiences and reconnecting with the fans. They felt that COVID affected the entertainment industry in an insane way. Like wiped it out. Wiped it out. It's not like, office work, you can go digital and that's it. No. If you're trying to make money, it's not the same. It doesn't hit the same. So these dudes were on their DNA World Tour. Their latest release, their latest album is called DNA. They were on their DNA World Tour. I think they were in South America. I could be wrong. And COVID hit, everything shut down. Instantly. Done. Tour done. Not going to happen. Not coming back. They said they had time on their hands. Everybody's separated. Everybody's in their homes and quarantined. What better way to use this time than to connect with our fans? And here we go. We got a little podcast radio show going on. All 5 of them. We've got all 5 members pulling up, which is amazing. It's not that weird middle period that Backstreet Boys went through where it was just 4 of them and Kevin wasn't with them. It was kind of strange. But if you want some nostalgia, look it up. All I Have to Give Radio. Let me see. Is there an exclusivity deal here with like Apple or something? I'm checking this article for a sec, just to, because I don't quite remember. And they definitely want NSYNC to pull up, which is interesting. Yeah. So there's no there doesn't seem to be any crazy animosity between Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. like the way it was before when they both had the same manager and Backstreet Boys were feeling like they were getting little by little cast aside. But let's see here. This is a whole long interview. I recommend you go read it. Cosmopolitan. Come on. Where is this? Is it just out? Dire fan. Right. Okay. It's out now via Apple Music. I don't know if that's super exclusive, but it is right now on Apple Music. You can go check it out. All I Have to Give Radio. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool deal going on. Because I'm into that. I'm into behind the scenes. I'm into listening to the old stories and what they went through. Because they've been a group together for years and years and years and years and years. Since the early 90s, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a lot of history. It's a lot of experiences that I definitely love to hear. I'm a sucker for that stuff. So that's enough news. What's happening this week? I know what's happening. Y'all are pulling up. And what I mean when I say you all are pulling up is when you're going to go out and do something, show up for it. Show up. In the South, we say show up and show out. Show up. If you're going to be the guy for in some situation, whether you're helping somebody or what have you, show up. Don't do it halfway. Don't half-ass it. Full-ass it. Okay? Because you never know that moving help or such and such a Zoom meeting for your job or helping a friend cook a meal or something. Show up, pull up, do your thing, because only you can do what you can do. Only you can be who you are specifically. So you pull up, you show up, fully invested, fully locked in, fully ready to go, and you never know how that will affect other people. You never know the opportunities that will come your way, because when you pulled up, you actually pulled up. You didn't pull up halfway. You didn't say you were going to do this or do that and do this and then do a lackluster job. Even in the minutia, show up. Because sometimes it's in that minutia that people remember who you are and what you're about. And then they want to call you back for an interview. They want to call you back for the job, or they just want to offer you the job without an interview, or they put you on their Rolodex without telling you, and they start shopping you around and the idea of you around to other people, and so then other people pull up and need your help or want you to do whatever your thing is. All because you pull up and you are focused, you do your thing, you do you make it go down, and you show up for everything. It's not just about your body being there. It's not just about keeping the appointment. It's about being 5 minutes early. It's about understanding what is required of you inside and out. It's about going the extra mile when you show up for something. And when you show up for someone, the same thing applies. So as we go out this week, we may have lost our jobs, but we may have gotten laid off. We may be looking for a job searching. Pull up, show up, and show out. When you get that interview, show up all the way, fully invested. DEFCON 5, all engines go. Because you never know. You never, ever know. I've had so much experience with that, where I just show up. I do what I got to do. If I'm playing a gig, because I'm a musician, vocalist, extraordinaire, songwriter, I pull up. I gotta pull up all the way, even if I don't want to be there. Even if I didn't like that I had to travel for X amount of time to get there to get paid beans or to get paid nothing. I pull up all the way. Because then because you never know whoever's watching you or is exposed to you showing up, that they're impacted to bless you in all kinds of ways. And it's happened to me. You know, after shows, yo, man, I really, you get all of those, all of those conversations. So show up, y'all. Show up. We need y'all. Show up. Now more than ever, that everyone wants to be dormant. Show up. The space is there for you to show up. So for those who were scared to pull up, who have the talent, who know what they're doing in their respective jobs and in their respective fields, if you were scared to pull up or timid, now you've got the space to be able to do it. So go out there and get her done. So this week, pull up. Pull up. Because you never know what's going to happen. That 1 second, that 1 day of show up, that 1 day of pull up could change your whole life in a second. To my native New Yorkers, y'all already know what I'm talking about. You got that hustle gene. You pull up for everything. You show up and show out all the time, my native New Yorkers. So y'all already know. But for those who don't, show up this week and see if it don't change things. See if it don't change your perspective on things. You feel me? Now, I have a little bit of a rant. Encouraging time over, and maybe not over. Someone might be encouraged by this. I came across, this article was presented to me. This Market Watch article was presented to me. And I was so triggered. And I don't really get triggered like that. I was so triggered, fam. The headline was, New York City is, quote, dead forever, according to this proud New Yorker. Oh my gosh. So this is according to Market Watch in the economy and politics section. So this person, the article starts off, will the city that never sleeps ever wake up? ? Not according to James Altucher, a best-selling author and former hedge fund manager and a former Market Watch columnist, who says that New York City is, quote, dead forever as its residents come to grips with the reality of the coronavirus pandemic and what it means for the fate of the Big Apple. What? And you're supposed to be a proud New Yorker, my guy? Watch this quote. This set me off. I love NYC. This is a quote from his blog about the subject. When I first moved to NYC, it was a dream come true. Every corner was like a theater production happening right in front of me. So much personality, so many stories. End quote. He wrote in a blog post explaining why his temporary relocation might become more permanent. Okay, if y'all want to go read the article, go and read the article. Written by Sean Langlois? I don't know. But yeah, Market Watch, it was published the 17th. There's also links to this dude, Altucher's blog post. I think he has a podcast too. He goes into great detail. The article doesn't go into detail, just sort of glosses over what he's talking about and like saying that the points that he brings up are valid because renting is going down and a lot of people are moving out and rents are dropping, which I don't know whose rents are dropping because my rent got raised up during COVID-19, fam. So I don't know what they're talking about. Maybe they're talking about the other side of the tracks. Maybe they're talking about, the penthousers, the Molly Pollys and Dollies, as my esteemed mentor calls them. Maybe he's talking about that, So I went, checked out the original, the source material, as I tend to do, because I don't really like to, I think I said it before, I'm not a headline guy. Like, I'm not just one of those people that scrolls through and like, oh, reads the headline and then just takes the news like that or digests it like that. I have to go deep. I've got to read it. I've got to see what they're saying, what's happening. I need to know the details. When things interest me, I have to be that way. So I went, read the blog post. Was like, okay, he's trying to break it down systematically, the economy and culture and things like that, things being closed and, the evolution of business now that big businesses in NYC and in Manhattan are noticing that they're still they have the ability to still do well even though their workers are telecommuting. So there's no need to really bring them into the big high-rise buildings. Some of the things make sense. What gets me tight is the result, where these stats lead this individual and lead the writer of this MarketWatch article about it. That New York is dead and New York is not going to come back. Let me go into something specific, because I did say that this thing set me off. So in the quote that I read, quote, I love NYC. When I first moved to NYC, what? I was thinking from right there. When I first moved to NYC, and the headline is New York City is, quote, dead forever, according to this proud New Yorker. My guy, you are a transplant. Who do you think you are to be able to comment on the spirit of NYC? The crossroads of the world. The center of the world. The city that every city wants to be like. You are a transplant, my guy. So come to read down, or I had to go to the about, I think, to find this, because in the article, it sort of conflates and convolutes whether this guy was actually born in NYC or not. So when I consulted the source material and went to his blog and his website, read the about, this guy moved here in like 1994. I'm like, yeah, of course you're going to think that, or you're going to feel that way, because the way that it used to be was this other thing. And even then, it wasn't a great thing. It wasn't even as great as it is now. For lack of a better term, I know that the line that some might draw to make America great again when I say it wasn't that great, but it was greater. Yeah. I'm not trying to make that draw that line or comparison. But fam, I was tight because no one really knows or can understand where something is going to, or how something is going to, that was my phone, or how something was going to develop or not develop over time. Case in point, and this is what I say to a lot of people when they're like, it's really come up, like, oh, it's never going to be the same, and how is this and how is that, and New York is not New York no more. No, my guy, I'm doing my best not to get super Bronx, not to get super New York. I'm curtailing my speech. I'm code switching. No, my guy. I bring up when people say these things and are like, first, are you a transplant? Did you come from some other place and are now trying to call yourself a New Yorker because you have a New York State ID? It's like a whole flow chart. Yes or no. It's a whole algorithm. Are you a transplant? Are you a Molly Polly Dolly that came here from somewhere else, trying to make it big in the Big Apple with your doe eyes and so on? And so then you lived here for a few years and are like, yeah, I'm a New Yorker. I'm a native New Yorker. No, my guy, you're not. 1994, this dude was already grown. He was a grown-ass man when he moved to NYC. That means all of your foundation, all of your learned experiences come from somewhere else, not from New York. New York did not shape you, which is the to me is the defining factor. If you were born here, raised here, you're a New Yorker. Because people who are born and raised in New York, when they go anywhere else in the world or anywhere else in the United States, people automatically pick up on, wait a second, you're not from here, one. Are you from New York? You don't know when I lived in for a brief period of time. I lived in North Carolina. People knew. I walked in, started speaking. The swag is different when you're born and raised in New York City. You walk around with a different kind of swag. And once a New Yorker, always a New Yorker. You were born and raised in NYC. When you go somewhere else, you don't know how many New Yorkers I've seen in North Carolina repping NYC, repping the Yankees, repping the Mets. Like, this is what it is. This is what it do. I'm not moving to North Carolina and repping the Tar Heels. You know what I'm saying? Or the Panthers. I'm not doing that. Yankees all the way, baby. Giants, Jets all the way, baby. Knicks all the way, baby. You know? So I was thrown. When I first moved to NYC, I was shook. I was like, I feel like I can't take anything that you're going to say seriously now. Because, and that's what led me to go see what year did you come here then? How recent was it? 1994? Oh, okay. So you saw H1N1, you saw swine flu, you saw bird flu, you saw MRSA, you saw SARS, you saw all of the Ebola, all of those scares. You saw the 2008 collapse, housing bubble pop. You saw the .com bubble pop in NYC. What are you talking about? 1994, Times Square was a very different place. Red light district, drugs flowing, on tap. And Times Square right now is super nice and clean and organized and so on. Back then, it was not that. It was messy. Messy with a capital M and a capital Y. So you're trying to tell me all the progress that was made through all of that hardship. 9/11, my guy was here for 9/11. And you're trying to tell me he's trying to sell that NYC is somehow not going to bounce back from COVID-19. That NYC, as the Big Apple and as the center of the world, is going to cease to be the center of the world because of COVID-19. This guy's smoking something. And that this Market Watch person, author, agrees with him because XYZ numbers of people leaving NYC and so on. Nah. People are leaving NYC and they give the example. People are leaving NYC to go back to live with their parents in Maine and in Massachusetts and in Connecticut and in Indiana and deciding not to come back. They're leaving to go live cheaper lives, XYZ. That sounds like Molly Pollys and Dollies to me. That sounds like all the transplants saying, I can't deal. I need to go back home to mom and dad. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Do what you need to do. You got to survive. But then don't come to me or don't start professing that you're a native New Yorker. If you're not in it to win it, if you're not here to make it do and to hustle. Because if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. You feel me? That adage is 100% true. Because and I speak that from personal experience. You travel around and it hits different. As a New Yorker, you're a different level. You're at a different tier. Your skill tree is built out in a different way than people in other states. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. So I was set off because, and what dawned on me, super huge. I started this by saying no one can really know what's going to happen and how people are going to adapt, and the structures that they build are going to adapt to what happens in life, what happens to the planet, so on and so forth. They're never going to know. You can't see it when you're in it. The Bronx was burning in the 80s, and case in point that this dude was a transplant and dropped off here in 1994. And in his blog post, and they allude to it in the article, he talks about Are they gonna man, where is it? I want to get the direct quote right here. Let me see. Benefit from saying this. I still live there. I love everything about it. Where is it? It says like blah 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 blah. No, blah 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 blah. No. Where is it? Okay, but Altucher doesn't see it that way. Will the city bounce back? Question mark. Quote. He says no, not this time. Will it remain the center of the financial universe? Question mark. He says quote. Not this time. New York has experienced worse? Quote. No, it hasn't. What? Are you smoking, my guy? And case in point, he's a transplant, grown dude, came here in 1994. The Bronx was burning in the 80s. The Bronx, by and large, was a bunch of vacant lots. Drugs were everywhere. The gangs ruled the streets. What are you talking about? People were not traveling up to the Bronx. They were not going past maybe 149th Street, 125th Street. The demographics would completely change. And how I'm very fervent and adamant, because I wasn't around during this time. My parents were around. My mom grew up here. And she recounts the stories, the vacant lots, you know, the gangs. You had to make sure to walk down specific kinds of streets and have a specific kind of route so you don't run into these dudes when you going and coming back from school. It was a war zone. And you see pictures from back then. It looked like a war zone. Because all of it was just slums. The buildings that were standing were slumlords running it. It was insane. It was wild. And no one could have predicted the development of the Bronx. No one. And it was so strange because you would hit Manhattan and everything seemed like it was fine. Yeah, this is New York. That's why Manhattan's called New York City. You know, the city. New York City, New York. You know? This is New York. It's fine. It's fire. You hit 125th and you're going to cross that river into the Bronx. It's like night and day. It's war zone. And then when you get out of the Bronx into Westchester, it's back to nice again. It was the strangest thing because slumlords were burning down buildings for the insurance money. The Bronx was a forgotten place. In between the shining jewel that was Westchester County, and just up there, Yonkers and so on, and the financial center of the world and crossroads of the world that is Manhattan. So I say that to say no one could have predicted how the Bronx developed. And now the Bronx is the Bronx. I mean, it was the Bronx back then, birthplace of hip hop, you feel me? Home and birthplace of so many influential individuals that I will not rattle off the names of right now. I think I'm going to dedicate an entire episode of the podcast to it. No one could have predicted the economic climb of the Bronx, to the point that now the Bronx is getting gentrified. A lot of the Bronx is being rezoned so taller luxury buildings can be built in it. And this is a borough of New York City who 25 years ago, 30 years ago, was a wasteland. So when dudes like this, Altucher dude, pull up and want to say that they're New Yorkers, and they're not born here, and they pulled up, what's worse, they pulled up to NYC after they were already grown and shaped by some other state and some other culture in some other state, and then want to say that we're not going to make it through this, we're not going to be this, like that NYC is going to be dead. It's I'm doing my very best to contain myself, and not blurt out the choice words that I have for people like that. 100%. So I said this probably could be an encouraging thing too. My New Yorkers, y'all know what it is. We survived blackouts. We survived viral outbreaks. We survived 9/11. We survived housing bubble, especially my millennials. Yo, we went through and are still going through it. Hardship after economic hardship after economic hardship. Whole sectors of business being oversaturated in short amounts of time. Housing bubbles burst. Stock market crashes. We've been through it. NYC is going to make it. We might have to adapt. NYC might have to adapt, but it will continue to be the financial center of the world. It will continue to be the greatest city on earth. It will continue to be the Big Apple. Broadway's going to take time to come back. Yes, we got to figure out what that's going to look like, what that's going to be. Heck, AMC is opening up for the on August 20th, I think, and doing 15-cent tickets to commemorate their 100 years or something, 50 years, their centennial. So they're doing 1920s ticket prices. Fam, they're going to figure out how to do it and how to have people in them theaters and whatever that capacity is going to look like. It's going to open back up again. Or it's just going to adapt and become more remote. People are going to get paid to work at home. And it's going to be lit. Because people tend to be more productive when they've got rest, when they've got relaxation, when they can do what they need to do and then come back and do the work that they need to do. It's statistically proven. Statistically proven. The stock market's coming back up again without Manhattan office buildings being populated. NYC is bouncing back and is going to bounce back. It will emerge as a great, bold, new thing. So my New Yorkers, be encouraged. I know a lot of us, I'm going to say it again, a lot of us lost our jobs. A lot of the companies we were working for went under or just needed to downsize to be able to stay solvent, to be able to stay open. A lot of our sectors closed down. You know, entertainment closed down, so you really can't find a job doing that. I mean, things are opening up now, and if you're adaptive enough, you will figure out how to make ends meet with your music. But we are gonna bounce back. We are already bouncing back. Already. So, takeaways, pull up, y'all. Show up and show out when you got to do what you need to do in the vast and in the minutia, because it will benefit you. The more good you put out into the universe, the more good that's going to come back to you. It just is what it is. It's just how our reality is built. And we rep New York here 100%. Yankees, Mets, Knicks, Jets, Giants. We rep NYC to the fullest. New Yorkers, shout it out in the comments on YouTube. If you agree with me, shout it out in the comments on Instagram. Shout it out via email. Shout it out on Twitter. Y'all know what to do. Y'all know what it is. Sound off. You feel me? Now, what my recommendation is for this week as we wind down, get ready to be out. I had some thoughts. Oh, I was going to talk about WAP. And that was going to be a whole other rant. But I think I'm going to save that. If y'all want to hear my hot takes on WAP, you feel me? And no, it's not going to be some weird conservative thing. Oh, it's too racy, it's too scandalous, it's not good for the culture and for women. That's not where I'm going with it. So if y'all want to hear my take on WAP and on Cardi B and how I feel right now about that song and that production, stay tuned, pull up, show up for next week's podcast, because that's when I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to rant a little bit. I think I got a little bit of a rant building up for that. But recommendation. I don't think I have a recommendation for this week for y'all in terms of like some kind of media to digest. I think I could just recommend pulling up, y'all. I recommend pulling up, showing up and showing out. It will do you some good, most certainly. It's done me wonders, 100% wonders. I've lived the life not pulling up, the life of not showing up and showing out, and it is very much so different than a life of showing up in the vast and in the minutia. All right, y'all. So if y'all want to interact with me, reach out. Maybe there's some subjects that y'all want me to talk about as millennials, you know. Some things you want to touch on, want to hear my sizzling hot takes. You feel me? On you can catch us on Twitter at Millennial Social, and that's millennial with 2 L's and 1 N. You can catch us on YouTube, the Social Millennial Podcast. You can catch us on Instagram and on Facebook, same handle at Social Millennial Pod. You can catch us there. Like our posts, comment. If you don't like it, comment too. You know, on YouTube, like it. If you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. We just want to hear from you. We want to know what we can do to make this show even more entertaining. We're going to be having a celebration in the coming months because this podcast, believe it or not, is growing. It's growing. Grassroots movement, baby. Little by little, making it do what it do. I'm not sponsored by a gigantic company that gives me hundreds of thousands of dollars or thousands of dollars or even hundreds of dollars or even tens of dollars or even dollars of dollars or even cents on the dollar to be able to promote this podcast. We've just been making it do what it do. And this podcast is growing. Its listenership is growing, and it's because of y'all. So by all means, we're going to have, or by all means, share these episodes, share the pages, you know, Spotify, radio.com, Google Podcasts. We're on everything. Are we on? Is there an Amazon? I don't know, but we're on everything. All right. We've got a landing page and all of that. You'll be able to find all of that on the Instagram and on the Facebook. There's a link tree there that you'll be able to see everything. But share it, y'all. Share it out. If you like, even if it's not the newest episode, if there's an episode that y'all love, download it, share it out. Don't download it and just share it out. Put it on a playlist. Recommend it, y'all. Each one reaches one. Every little bit counts. And a little bit of support. Listen, it's free to support the podcast. We're not asking for any money. We're not putting the podcast behind a paywall. You feel me? This isn't Patreon. I'm not putting episodes on Patreon and then releasing little bits of it. This is free for all y'all. Free encouragement, free news, free hot takes. You feel me? Free nostalgia. So the Social Millennial Podcast, we want to make it everything that y'all need out of a podcast, especially coming out of New York City, coming out of the Bronx, you know, whatever y'all need, get to us in the comments. All right. So have a great week. Stay focused, stay up, stay strong, 10 toes down, pull up. What else can I say here? Pull up and just stay on it. Show up and show out. All right. I'll see y'all next week. Some wild stuff is going down. It's going to be wild. If you want to hear that WAP hot take, the WAP rant, pull up for episode what? We're going to be on episode 20 next week. Whoa. Let's get her done. I said, whoa. You feel me? Let's get it done. All right, y'all. Peace.
Walking through my city, so many people passing me by, but nobody seems to know why. Street lights saying stop and go, cars zipping past me to and fro. Does anybody know now? Oh, how time is slipping. 'Cause under the surface of the push and shove is New York City. The hustle and bustle of this town I love, that's New York City. Could there be a future here? Oh, so many people giving their sweat and tears. Does someone know the way? I'm sick of taking it day by day. Oh, 'cause under the surface of the push and shove is New York City. The hustle and bustle of this town I love. Under the Broadway lights, performers working day and night, filming for the TV screen, the movie house, and in between. Heights to heights and zoo to zoo, magic that you always knew. Stadium sounds, the love abounds in the patter of little feet. Looking out for our fellow man, lending a helping hand, that's New York City. Coming together and taking a stand, that's New York City. 'Cause under the surface of the push and shove is New York City. Looking out for our fellow man, lending a helping hand, that's New York City. Coming together and taking a stand, it's New York City. The hustle and bustle of this town I love is New York City. That's New York City. That's New York City. That's New York City.